I was at a staff meeting a few years ago, and we had a real problem in our school, which was strongly affecting our teachers. And it was a real problem, and it was my fault. And the meeting was called, the two teachers were there, myself, and the two other administrators, my bosses. And the meeting was progressing, and it took 2 hours. And we literally went through every single time that this problem reared its ugly head and the effect that it had. And we said, okay, we're going to give it a 1-month trial, and then we're going to meet back and see if it makes a difference. And one teacher says, thank you, and the other one says, thank you, but...
Hey guys, thank you for tuning into our new podcast, Permission to Believe. We'll explore the real transformative power of believing in people. I had a conversation with Rabbi Zalmy Kudan, a world-class educator, and we explored what it really means to believe in other people, even when it's difficult, and the real power that lies within our own transformation, our own perspective shift in how we view people. And I'm super excited to share this with you. Quick idea on the Parsha that pertains to the idea of believing in people. Moshe Rabbeinu is rebuking the Jewish people. Rashi tells us that he's rebuking the people covertly. It's quiet. It's not public. Ele hadvarim asher diber Moshe. These are the things that Moshe spoke. A curious statement, because when Hashem had first called upon Moshe in Midian to lead the Jewish people, Moshe was hesitant, and Moshe said, Loi ish dvarim anochi. I'm not a man of words. And now it says these are the words that he had spoke. The Tzivos Hashem explains that at first Moshe didn't believe that his words would resonate with the people, that what he would say to them would actually make a difference. Would they actually listen to him? Was he the type of person that would be respected by people? Were these the type of people that would respect him? Moshe had his doubts, his reservations, his hesitations. Yet at the end, he says, Eile hadvarim. These are the words in the context of his critique. And at some point, 40 years later, Moshe finally believed that his words would actually resonate with the people. What changed? Perhaps those 40 years of getting to know the Jewish people, not just diving right in and sharing critique, but getting to know them, getting to understand them, earning their trust, truly believing in them. And now that you truly believe in them and care about them, and Moshe demonstrated his care deeply for them, now that he truly cares about them and truly believes in them, his words will truly resonate. Sometimes we have to share things that are uncomfortable, like Moshe Rabbeinu. Sometimes we have to speak truth, and truth isn't always popular. But let's get to know who we're talking to, not just the truth we're trying to propagate, the truth that we're trying to share. But let's get to know who we're sharing it with. As the old saying goes, nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care. Okay, enjoy the show.
Rabbi Kudan, thank you for joining us.
Pleasure and a privilege and an honor.
Yeah. I really appreciate you carving time out of your busy camp day today. Rabbi Kudan, you wear a lot of hats. At least it seems like you wear a lot of hats.
Yes.
One of your hats is camp. Another hat that you wear that I'm personally familiar with, maybe we'll get into that soon, is your camp your camp guru hat. Besides being a camp director locally, you're a I don't know, is that the right word? Okay.
I trained about 2,000 staff this summer, so yeah.
Wow! At the same time, or
no.
But you ran around. You were, where were you?
Well, we have a lot of staff who take our online on our reconnect.com platform. We have staff that took live trainings over Zoom, and I went to a lot of camps as well. I still have a few more that I'm on the way to. Yeah, Baruch Hashem.
Okay, so I'm just trying to figure out, at least for our listeners, who you are. You have your camp hat. You have your camp training, camp guru hat.
I'm a principal of a school, Lamplighters Jewish Academy in Oxnard.
Okay.
That's what I spend most of my time during the year.
Okay.
And
you're a shliach in Santa Barbara?
A shliach in Simcha Barbara.
I like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
The reason why I mention this is because I remember calling you several years ago when I was running a summer camp. I don't know if you remember this call. I was trying to navigate a certain situation I had with some head counselors. And, it's incredible what we do in the Chabad world, and even beyond the Chabad world. We take these young girls or young boys and empower them in situations that require a lot of responsibility, a lot of faith, a lot of trust. And
a lot of skill.
And a lot of skill, right? And there was something where I felt, I don't know, I felt stuck. And maybe it was in my head, whatever it was. I don't want to give too many details online here. And I asked you for advice. And you said something which really stuck with me till now. And it's been several years. You said, if you don't believe in them, you have no business hiring them. And if you do believe in them, you have every business trusting them. And I'm
True.
like, whoa, that is wild. It shifted everything, right? And at the time, I was calling you or texting you, whatever it was, and I'm thinking, this guy, how do you have the headspace to believe in people with everything that you do? I mean, you're wearing all of these hats. You're the principal of a school. You're training counselors worldwide. You're a shliach locally to a shul and community. And you're running your own camp. And I had this kind of epiphany, and I think you'll agree with me, that you're not wearing all that many different hats. You're really wearing one hat and using them many different ways.
I think that as a shliach of the Rebbe, we have these chus to amplify and to communicate and to be the channel through which the Rebbe's belief in every individual comes through. And I think that if you just watch videos of the Rebbe interacting with people at the dollars line, every person, the Rebbe believes in them more than they believe in themselves. Like to a fault almost. Like there's this Reform rabbi, there's this clip of this Reform rabbi who walks in and to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe and he tells the Rebbe, like, I'm a Reform rabbi. Like he's trying to, like, he's trying
to let him know, don't believe in me.
Right. And the Rebbe, without missing a beat, says, and how are you going to influence your congregation in more Torah and mitzvahs?
That is...
And it's incredible. In other words, this guy's trying to say, I'm not on your team. And the Rebbe is like, well, how can you be more on my team than you ever thought you could be? Because I believe that you could have an impact in doing what I know is important for the world and for you. And I think that as the Rebbe Shluch, it doesn't matter exactly which role we're in, whether we're the director of a staff member, a teenager who's came to dedicate her summer, his summer to to be part of that mission and that vision, or if we're talking about a camper, or talking about a camp parent, or a school parent, or a child in a school, or my own children, right? If I am the Rebbe's vehicle, and ultimately Hashem's vehicle, to helping this child, then I have to come with Hashem's belief in this child. Hashem created this child. Hashem chose me as their parent. Hashem chose me as their principal. Hashem chose me as their camp, whatever. And if Hashem believes in us, who am I to get in the way?
I remember the Rosh saying to us in yeshiva years ago, you think you can't, God says you can. Who do you want me to believe?
Exactly. Yeah.
So when you're watching that clip of the Rebbe, and there's many more clips in Sichos and Maimarim and everything, I'm just using that as an example. It's empowering, it's inspiring. But then you have to go back to your day, and life gets busy, and there's a lot going on. You wake up in the morning, and you got to hit the ground running with all of your responsibilities as to your own family, to your community, to the staff that you train and everything. How do you keep that inspiration with you, even when we're not sitting at a podcast where it's conducive to share that idea, but when all the pressures are hitting, how do you keep that inspiration of my job is to channel the Rebbe's faith in people?
So I'm a big believer in exercise.
What type of exercise?
All types of exercise, practicing. And
okay.
If let's just use physical exercise, if you do 20 push-ups once a month, you're going to see very little progress, and by the time you get past the 10th push-up, you're going to be struggling. But if you do 5 push-ups a day, your strength, endurance, and overall health is going to improve way more than, right, because of the regular and consistent progress. And I think that's where in life we need to lean into the daily and consistent and never-ending commitment to keep practicing these skills. And even if I mess up, which I will because I'm a human being, and I forgot to eat breakfast, or I didn't drink enough water, or my body's deregulated, or whatever it is, I didn't get enough sleep, even if I'm going to mess up, I still need to pick myself up and keep practicing. And like I always tell people, there's only one way to learn how to ride a bike. Riding a bike. You could watch 100 podcasts on how to ride a bike. You will not get any better at it. So I think that's what it's about. Practicing the tools that allow you to express belief and curiosity instead of expectation and judgment. I think that's what it boils down to.
And where do you personally derive these tools from to practice? Like, if I had these tools and I'm committed to practicing these tools, but where do you? I mean, you gave that example of that clip, which I think is a very clear example. But where I don't think there's any right or wrong answer necessarily. There could be plenty of wrong answers, but I'm curious where your go-to is.
Well, I think over time, I've always been fascinated since I was a young child. I've always been fascinated by how people work and how I could better service people and how I could better communicate to children. I think we need to, in our pursuit of excellence, we have to find those simple tools that help us get better at what our goals are. And as I was looking to and I was preparing for the year after year of being a counselor in camp, and then as a director and a head counselor and trying to train my staff, I read a lot, I learned a lot, I watched a lot, I observed a lot. And even as a small child, I remember my father pointing out things to me as a small child. Once there was two people arguing in shul, and he's like, listen to those two people arguing. And I'm like, okay. And he's like, which one is listening to the other one? I'm like, neither. He's like, aha. I must have been 9-10 years old. So I've always been fascinated by this. And, I've learned that, number one, we have to exercise our kamecha muscle. We have to believe in ourselves. We have to be able to see the positive in ourselves. We have to be able, not only be able to, but we have to consistently force ourselves to look and acknowledge where we're getting it right also. We talk about doing a cheshbon nefesh at night, to do an accounting, to process things. We do a great job beating ourselves up and saying what we did wrong every day. But we got to do a much better job of also building those mental pathways that allow us to see ourselves in a positive light. Because if I don't believe in myself, I'm going to have a really hard time believing in other people. Right? That's what the Torah says. You love other people like you love yourself. Well, if your baseline is, I don't really trust myself, I usually mess up, and I'm not so good at this, well then how am I ever going to reflect to other people a belief in other people? So I think that's really an important tool. Like, that's one space.
That resonates very deeply with me personally, as one of the big things I do now is marriage counseling. And one of the questions I like to ask couples is because the first thing couples, they come in and their focus is on where we're getting it wrong, what's not working, which is what compelled them to come in the first place. And I want to figure out what is working. And if I say explicitly, hey, what's working? They're going to say nothing. They're frustrated, at least at that moment. But I always like to ask them, how did you meet? Because they decided to actually get married. They decided to keep this going. And there is something that was working at some point. It may have been decades ago or years ago, but it's still there. And like you said, it's neurology, it's pathways to the brain, and it's, the spirituality is timeless. If somebody is to take this challenge and highlight the kamoicha, and to figure out what is working, where would you say the first place they should look is?
So my daily exercise for my kamecha muscle, my daily 5 push-ups, is I write down 3 things that I did well every day.
Wow, so it's really concrete.
And who else was helped? and I do it in a log with a date on it. And even if I miss a few days, it's okay. I try to be as consistent as possible. And what you see is your brain starts to follow that pathway. You can do it on a Google Doc or whatever, or a list on your phone. But your brain starts to see day 1, day 2, day 3, day 55, day 65, right? And your brain, that is a daily exercise that really helps me, and I know many others that do it as well. It really helps to start over time. Again, you're not doing 50 push-ups one day and then you're going to lose 30 pounds. That's not how it works. But over time, we start to build that other option in the brain. There's not only the highway that I mess up, there's also a new road being formed where I do the right thing as well.
When you strengthen that kamoicha muscle, I love how you call it a muscle. I don't know, I connect with that. But when you work on strengthening that kamoicha muscle, let's say over time, getting 3 things down that are working, you write it down, it's concrete. What shift do you see in the l'reacha outside of yourself and other people as you're progressing internally?
Okay, and I don't know if we can ever point at, because I wrote down 3 things yesterday, that's why I was able to see the positive.
It's hard to
in another
quantify.
person. It's hard to quantify that. However, I know that when I'm feeling good, I have a lot more patience for other people. Let's use a physical example. If I'm hydrated, let's say if I'm dehydrated, right? And someone steps on my foot, I'm very likely to overreact. Right? Because my brain, my hypothalamus thinks I'm dying, God forbid, because I don't have enough water. Someone steps on my foot, I think it's a lethal attack. Get off my foot, you mother! Right? And right, I'm in that zone. But if I'm hydrated and I'm calm and I slept well and I ate breakfast and I'm doing good and someone steps on my foot, I say ouch, they say I'm sorry, and I say it's okay. Right? And we keep going on in life. So I think it's the same thing with interactions with other people. If I see someone say someone says something to me which I could find obnoxious, annoying, frustrating, angering, whatever, and if someone says something to me which I could find frustrating or annoying, and I am in a good place, then I might choose to say, tell me more, or what made you say that, and have that curiosity. Which is one of the tools that we want to have, is that the way to express belief in a person is curiosity. That's how you know you believe in someone, is if you're being curious when you see something's off, right?
As opposed to what? What would the interest be?
So expectation. Well, let's back up a little bit then. Good. So if I expect you to come on time and you come 12 minutes late, what does that say about you?
About me? That I'm late.
Yeah, you're late, and therefore you are.
Therefore, I am irresponsible. Or whatever label we put to it, right?
Right. So if I expect something and you miss that expectation, you're a failure. Whatever. That you failed that expectation, and therefore there's a judgment that comes along with that. So expectations lead to judgments. Belief. If I believe you can come on time because I know you haven't missed too many flights in your life.
You'd be surprised. No, I'm joking.
You can come on time. I know you can come on time. And then you're 12 minutes late. Do I still believe you can come on time? Of course I do. So instead of judging you, I now become curious as to what happened this morning.
And that kind of softens the confrontation as well.
Well, it's not a confrontation.
Right.
So I teach in my trainings 3 curiosity openers. Right, I could ask. I'm wondering about this morning, right? And I'm always allowed to wonder. And so you might say, or tell me about this morning. Oh yeah, it was terrible. My car broke, and my babysitter didn't show up, and my kids' carpool canceled. And right, okay, so I'm going to come at that conversation very differently than I was playing solitaire and I really couldn't finish the game. I had to finish the game, right? So okay, and then and the third one is I need your help. I need your help with something. I need your help with something, which is, I need your help with something. It's my responsibility to make sure every kid is supervised in school. And when there's no teacher in the morning, and I don't even get a notification about it, I didn't even know that there was a whole classroom of kids not being supervised. I need your help to make sure this doesn't happen again. And so then we're on the same team, right? I need your help. So those three openers are great ways of expressing curiosity. I'm wondering, tell me, and I need your help. So we have practical tools of forcing our brain to go into belief mode. It's much easier to believe in the other person when you have experience believing in yourself.
In other words, once you've believed in yourself, you know that belief is possible.
Correct.
Right? You start to believe that people are capable.
And we have to you do. We do mirror our relationship with other people. We do reflect that off of ourselves. We do.
Like the famous teaching of the Baal Shem Tov, what you see
Correct.
somebody else as a mirror. It sounds like it takes a lot of humility to apply that to somebody else, because usually when it comes to somebody else, there's an inconvenience attached to it, right? Or an offense attached to it. Sometimes it's an emotion. Maybe it's not even a practical inconvenience. Sometimes it's just an emotion attached to it. And to drop that and to be curious.
So I always ask my counselors in camp to raise their hand if they know whose job it is to make the kids quiet during davening. And inevitably, a bunch of first-time counselors will raise their hand and think that it's their job. And then I ask them, I say, well, are you able to make them quiet? And the answer is that even with duct tape, you can't make them quiet. I can make a lot of noise with duct tape on my mouth, right? So you can't give responsibility without authority, right? It can't be my job to make a kid quiet if I can't even do it. So I think this can be applied to everything. I don't have the ability to make someone else upset. I'm not in control of that person's feelings. This was a huge epiphany for me when I learned that nobody else can make me upset, that nobody else can make me frustrated. And every time I'm getting frustrated, it's my choice. Even if it's a subconscious choice, even if it was my choice to not drink enough water that day.
Right.
But in that, truly, I have the choice. And I always ask myself, like, if a 2-year-old would have done the same thing, would I have gotten upset? If a 2-year-old would call me fat,
Right.
would I be offended? Oh, you're such a cutie.
Which you're saying to your point that we can use discretion when to be offended, when to not, making it a choice.
So your comment was that it takes a lot of humility to not get offended by other people. So what I learned is that I actually am never being offended by other people. I'm always choosing to be offended myself. That makes it a lot easier because I'm in control.
Right. And now you have the autonomy to choose believing in the person or choose whatever it is.
Yeah, I'll tell you a story, okay?
Yeah.
Here's a story. I was at a staff meeting a few years ago, and we had a real problem in our school, which was strongly affecting 2 of our teachers. And it was a real problem. And it was my fault or under my responsibility that problem happened. And it was my job to make changes to make sure it corrected. And the meeting was called. The 2 teachers were there, myself, and the 2 other administrators, my bosses, were there as well. And the meeting was progressing, and it took 2 hours. And we literally went through every single example, every single time that this problem reared its ugly head, and the effect that it had. And then the teachers proposed solutions, and we wrote down the solutions, and we problem solved. We went through all the problems and saw if every problem had a solution, and they did. And we had this all written up, and we said, okay, we're going to give it a 1-month trial, and then we're going to meet back and see if it makes a difference. And one teacher says, thank you, and the other one says, thank you, but, and he stands up as he's about to leave, he says, but I don't believe that this is actually going to change anything. It all sounds nice in theory, but I don't actually believe you guys are actually going to do this.
He didn't believe in the teacher, or he didn't believe in the solution, or he didn't believe in the staff, or the solution.
Me. This was directed towards me. Now, I've been practicing this skill of curiosity instead of judgment, of belief instead of expectation, of being able to look at everybody as a friend. Imagine your best friend would say that to you. Why would he do that? There's obviously, he's my friend. Right? The Rebbe says supposed to live as if Mashiach came already. When Mashiach comes, there's no conflict, there's no jealousy, there's no strife. This is a friend of mine, and he's saying something for me. He's trying to help me. And what came out of my mouth after lots of practice was, "Thank you. I know you're only saying that because you believe in our relationship, and you are trying to challenge me, and it worked. You have just lit a fire under me. I'm going to fight so hard to prove you wrong and to make sure that this happens. Thank you."
Wow.
And my boss almost had a heart attack.
Because he thought you were. Did your boss think you were serious?
Oh, I was serious.
No, I know you were serious. I'm just curious how
My
what
boss
it
knew
looked
I was
like.
serious. No, my boss knew I was
Because
serious.
most people wouldn't react that way. I mean, you sat down for a 2 or 3 hour meeting and you try to figure.
And everybody would have been fine with me getting offended. Everybody would have understand why I
No, it would have been
chose to get
understandable.
offended. Right? Everybody, but I believe in people. Again, let's ask ourselves the question: if the Lubavitcher Rebbe was in the room, and somebody said that, would he let himself get away with that? No, he would not allow himself to be offended by that.
Wow.
You are on my team, no matter what. I believe in you. And I do believe in him. I really do believe in the staff. And the proof is in the pudding. Baruch Hashem, the next months and years have proven that change did happen, real change. And Baruch Hashem. And the point is that we choose. That's my point. We choose. He offended me. He didn't.
It sounds like it's not just blocking out the offense and trying to put your guard up so you don't get offended. It's more than that. It's not even relevant. Offend, not offend. There's a challenge here. You're accepting it. Like it's not even a mechanism to get offended. It sounds like the way you're treating it, which I love, is that the offend or not offend is not even a relevant part of the equation.
Because I get to choose that, so I would never choose that.
Right.
I don't want to be offended.
In other words, you're not even choosing to block out or tune out an offense. The offense is not even there because you wouldn't choose it. You're not the type of person who would internalize that.
Well, it's not coming from there.
Right.
I can't block it out if it's not coming.
And
internally it might.
At that split second, you made a decision that you were going to internalize that comment as a challenge, as a motivation. What is the switch there in terms of that interpretation, or was it just natural out of so much practice?
It's practice. So friendship mindset. Okay, and a lot of this comes from Izzy Kalman in his book Bullies to Buddies, which if any of our listeners want to order that, they should get the Torah edition because it definitely has important stuff in there. But that idea that if I choose to treat myself as a friend, the Kamecha muscle, I also can choose to treat other people like a friend. And if everybody's my friend, no one can hurt me. So if you punch me and I punch you back, we have a fight, right? But if you punch me and I say, "Wow, you are strong, that hurt," and I give you a compliment, is there a fight?
No.
So
there's value.
Here's the trick.
There's strength, right?
here's the trick question: who starts the fight?
Right.
So we have always been taught as kids that the first punch starts the fight, but it's not true. The first punch is awful. It's evil, right? Even Moshe Rabbeinu, even lifting up your hand against someone is called evil. It's a terrible thing to do. Don't do it. Don't punch people. But if someone punches you, you're the one who gets to choose. Is this going to be a fight, or am I going to compliment this guy and walk away? And that power that we have is something that I have really enjoyed getting to use again and again and again. And it's so powerful. If someone, you can't, and it works the other way also, you can't chase me if I don't run away.
Wow. Can you share with me? I love this. This is like, no, this is real gold because this is life changing. It's radical faith in people, which I think this world needs more of. I want to ask you for some stories, but before we get there, before I forget, what I'm curious about is you mentioned the friendship mindset, and I'm curious how that works for somebody who's in a position of authority. And I know authority is a strong word, but at least a at least on paper, that but your job is to be in a position of authority to make decisions and to have people follow those decisions as a camp director, as a school principal. And you could be friendly with people, and maybe you're going to end up being friends with people, but at the end of the day, you are the final call. You are the authority figure. And for those of our listeners who are the authority figure, how do you balance having the friendship mindset while being in the authority figure position?
I think let me just clarify. I think your question is there a risk if I'm always treating my employees as a friend that there's going to be some blurred lines in our business relationship?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's a good question. I think the friendship mindset is not about becoming friends. It's about choosing to respond as a friend.
Okay, so it's an
So
attitude,
even though-
not a position.
And there is a specific response that I respond. So if my friend comes into my office, if an employee comes to the office and says, Rabbi Zalmy, you're not supporting me, you're not doing your job, you're supposed to be the principal here, I never see you, you never observe my classroom, you're a total loser, I hate you, you're terrible, right? So I'm not asking if they're my best friend or not. I am asking, are they saying to this in a friendly way, meaning that they're trying to make the school better? Or are they saying to this to me in order to create strife and division amongst our staff?
And you're going to assume the former.
I'm going to choose the former because I want to believe, and I do believe, that every teacher in my school wants to have the best school. And I will actually respond with what I call the 5-step conversation, which is, I believe you want the best for the school. I'm hearing you say a problem, and I'm also hearing you talk about my role and the things that seem to have really bothered you about the way I'm behaving. Tell me more. And I'll listen more and listen more. Once usually I state the belief, they're able to lean into that more themselves. They talk about it, yeah, but you're not really coming. You told me you were going to come last week, you didn't come. And then I could say, well, imagine I wasn't here for 2 weeks. And you needed more support from me. What would be your next step? I would WhatsApp you. Okay. Right? Okay, great. So the first step is to state the belief I have in the person. The second step is to state without emotion what I observed or heard. The third step is to say, tell me, and listen. The fourth step is to imagine Mashiach is already here, and it's a perfect world. And the fifth step is to ask them for a solution. So, can I tell another story?
Yeah, please. First of all, before you tell your story, I just want to point out, I love the application of that Mashiach mindset, because it's literally living Mashiach. If Mashiach was here, things would be peaceful, and our conversation would be different. I'd be pulling something different out of you. You'd be pulling something different out of me. You know, I saw a Sikha from the Rebbe about Avas Yisrael. We often see Avas Yisrael as a mechanism, loving your fellow Jew as a mechanism of fixing the past, because the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed because of that. And the Rebbe says it's also a mechanism of living in the future, because these relationships are going to be, Avas Yisrael is going to be in the air, and we start living that reality now.
And in the Atat Tetzaveh, the Rebbe's most recent mimer, right? The Rebbe says in little brackets in the 11th chapter there that having this Mashiach mindset, this frustration over Galus, and this just being sick that Hashem is not where He wants to be and the way He wants to be, that brings out such a core connection that we can actually have a Havas Yisrael even on a physical plane, which in Tanya it says that the only way to really have true unity is to focus on the soul. But the Rebbe says that now, as we are getting into the Mashiach mindset, we can even do it in a physical way. We can even see someone's insult of my size as a friendship unifying idea.
So you would say, just so I understand, that the Rebbe's intention in Avos Yisrael in a physical way, from the perspective of the body, means in the context of not just spiritual things, but in the context of let's say a working relationship.
The Rebbe spells it out. The Rebbe says,
he says that.
Yeah, look at the bracket. It's a little bracket. It says there.
He says go.
yeah. Afilu b'inyanim gufniyim. The Rebbe says clearly that
Interesting.
nowadays
Interesting.
the rules have changed. I mean, it's fascinating that the Rebbe, after Tanya was going for 7 generations, the Rebbe changed the rule. For us now, this is the best
Amazing.
time to be alive because we're bringing Mashiach, right? So this is an unbelievable opportunity we have to be able to connect
And
to
going
people.
back to the exercises you were talking about, that's consistent with the Rebbe's idea of opening up our eyes to the Geula,
Yeah,
of training ourselves to see something that's already there,
yeah,
which is AKA believing in people.
yeah. I mean,
Wow.
with Rebbe's belief. With Rebbe's
Yeah,
belief.
I mean, channeling that faith. What was that story you were going to share?
So a kid comes over to me, says, my counselor hates me, right? So, my staff members as a kid would have said, no, he doesn't. He just took you guys out on a late night last night, right? Okay. So, but again, we've been practicing, right? So I said, tell me more, right? Curiosity.
In other words,
So
you're
he
not
says,
just
well,
dismissing him and saying, you're taking him
on the
seriously.
contrary, I'm curious. I believe that this kid is a soldier in Tzivos Hashem. He has a piece of God within him. And if he's saying that his counselor hates him, there's got to be something good that's got to come out of this. So I'm not going to get into a fight with him, God willing. That's the plan. So tell me more. So he says, well, it's not my fault. Everybody was doing it. It's not my fault I have good aim. I said, ooh, tell me more about that. He's like, yeah, well, everybody was spitting spitballs and mine hit the counselor in the face. I said, oh, okay. So all right, now we got the story, right? Curiosity pays off a lot. So I said, I believe that you have a lot of self-control. In fact, being able to shoot a spitball across the room and hit someone in the face, that itself takes a tremendous amount of body awareness and self-control. I believe you can even control yourself when everybody else isn't. But I'm hearing that today you were shooting spitballs. Tell me more. He said, yeah, well, I could control myself, but why should I? I said, well, you have great aim. You're going to be speaking to me every day if you shoot spitballs at the counselor, right? and imagine that you're a person that everybody knows, right? This is the fourth step of that 5-step. Imagine you're the guy that everybody knows that even when there's chaos, even when everybody else is losing it, you're a person who always does the right thing. Imagine what type of businessman, shliach, counselor, father you're going to be if you're able to control yourself and people know that about you. I said, I want to challenge you to come over to me before the supper time tonight and tell me a time that you controlled yourself and other people weren't. Fine. Anyways, he marches off. 7 minutes later, he comes running over to me. Okay, everybody was making fun of Chaim and I didn't. Okay, bye. I gotta go. And it's amazing what people will do when someone believes in you.
Wow.
It's amazing.
I think one of the incredible things about this story is because you believed in him, what was his motivation to exercise self-control? In contrast to a classical approach of don't do that, that's not allowed, and you crack down and the sirens go off and you hand out the citations or else, right? That motivation is Rabbi Zalmy's watching. Rabbi Kudan is watching me. I better not do this. And the moment you're not watching, there's no longevity. There's no... Over here, it sounds like you tapped into his real interest in exercising something you actually believed he had it and got him to see it.
Yeah. And I mean, if you want a resource for that, Michael Brandwine has an amazing book called Growing Great Qualities in Kids, which is the basic premise is that as young children, we're very good about teaching them nouns. We point, Tati's phone, right? That's how we teach them words. And the words that we often hear, or at least we heard as young people when they were teaching us words like respect, was, hey, that's not respectful. But they weren't actually pointing at the respect. So he has a beautiful way of educating us as parents and adults to find children's good midas, good attributes, good behavior, and point at it and say, hey, I heard a thank you, that's respectful.
Interesting. So almost turning the verb into a noun to make it more real.
Yeah.
More concrete.
Yeah. And to be able to point at it. Can we? And the more you do that, the more the child sees themselves as being that thing. So if you, the more times you show a kid, hey, you just cleaned up that puzzle, that was helpful. Hey, you just brought the napkin to the table, that was helpful. Hey, you just did this, that was helpful. They're going to start seeing themselves as helpful. They have evidence.
Wow. Have you ever... No, that sounds incredible. My question is, for those who are listening to this and haven't reached the levels that you've got to in terms of having this language of faith down so clearly. In other words, it's not like you've memorized it's just natural for you because it's the way you're seeing things. For some of the people watching this, they may, they're inspired by this and they want to begin adapting this point of view. And I'm curious what advice you have for them while they're still kind of in this work in progress, working on themselves and trying to be able to believe in people and be more curious and all that. But again, you have one might have decades and decades of looking for problems and trying to solve them or trying to cut them down and trying to smash them down instead of believing in the person carrying the problem. What advice would you have for that type of person?
Okay, 3 things. Number 1, life's a process, not a switch. You're not going to get off of this podcast a changed person and suddenly be great at this. This is something that you will always, in Mitzvah Hashem, and myself included, hopefully I will get better and better at believing in people and at leaning into that belief and at bringing it out in the other people. I want to continue to grow in this area myself. So that's number 1. Number 2, write down 3 things you did or said well every single day and who else was helped in a log with a date. And don't just think about it, write it down, because when you write it down, your brain gets triple the amount of process. It sees it, it writes it, and it thinks it.
Interesting.
So you're getting a lot of input there. So do it, and it works with your thumbs too. And
it has the same impact? Does it scientifically?
Right. Well, yeah, you're doing.
The fact that you have to confine something to words. I was reading in Kuntres Avodah from the Rebbe Rashab, where he says in order for his boinunus, in order for meditation or contemplation to have an emotional impact, he says it has to be his boinunus pratis. His boinunus klalis doesn't have the same impact.
Right.
And writing it down makes it concrete. You have to put it into very specific words.
Yes, absolutely. So first thing is it's a process, not a switch. Just
I like that. Better. I like that.
Notice when you mess up and say, okay, that's good. I'm on this process. I noticed it. That's also good.
And then also noticing the times you didn't mess up, just because you did mess up.
Yeah, of course. But even when you mess up, you could write it down as one of the things you did well today is I realized that I messed up, so that I can use that in the future. Okay, all right, fine. So that's number 1. Number 2 is to actually do the exercise of kubecha, writing down 3 things you do well every single day for the rest of your life, Mitzvah Hashem, so that you can continue to always build that self-belief and self-love so that you can reflect that on others. And number 3 would be to practice saying, I'm wondering, before you ask any child or your spouse.
Just the word, I'm wondering.
Add the words, I'm wondering, before you start. So instead of, get out of my seat, I'm wondering if you knew that was my seat. Instead of, can I have my seat back? I'm wondering if I could have my seat back. Just that one thing allows for an open conversation. So the other person could say, hey, I was actually in that seat first.
Wow.
Right? So being able to just that one tool, I'm wondering. Just start saying.
That's powerful. I mean, it's simple but powerful.
The first time I came up with this I'm wondering thing was when I was a head counselor in our overnight camp, our Tzivos Hashem overnight camp. It was the first year we did it in our Chabad house here. And our staff and everybody was inside the tent. And we had gone from 10 campers to 35 campers like a week before camp. We were not ready for it at all. I was the head counselor by default. I get up there and I'm about to give the 3 rules of camp. Respect, listen the first time, and be where you're meant to be. And as I'm about to say the speech, I'm like, not everybody knows how to say, get out of my seat respectfully.
People don't know what respect means.
They don't know how to do it. Like, how do you say, I don't want to play this stupid game respectfully? Or this game is stupid. Like, how do you do that? And it just hit me. I'm like, I'm wondering if we could play something else. I'm wondering if if you could sit somewhere else. That's my seat, right?
So curiosity is almost code word for respect.
Well, it's one of the ways of being.
I mean, it's one of the ways
to
to express respect. Yeah, interesting.
right, is to be curious instead of judgmental. Right? We would all agree that judgmental is not respectful. So what's the
Right.
alternative? The alternative is curiosity. So as I said this out loud, we had 4 older Bacharim who were amazing, amazing, amazing guys, and they literally started making fun of me the entire camp experience. Rabbi Zalmy, I'm wondering when the supper is going to be ready. Rabbi Zalmy, I'm wondering if we can have extra Laffy Taffies. Rabbi Zalmy, I'm wondering. And it became this thing. And guess what happened? The kids started doing it too. And it was so nice.
Right, it's just more peaceful. I mean, you saw it as they thought they were making fun of you. You took it as challenge accepted, right?
Not even a challenge. It was so nice. It was so nice. It was so nice to hear people saying, Rabbi Zalmy, I'm wondering where the lasagna is. Instead of Rabbi Zalmy, that's 5 hours late for supper.
Wow, that's powerful. Powerful.
So those are the 3 things. It's a process. Write down 3 things you do well every day, and practice I'm wondering. That tool is a great intro to being curious.
That is very helpful and very concrete. If you were to attribute your, I don't want to say a unique ability because it's something everybody has, but it's something that you really practice and empower others. But if you were to attribute your ability to believe in people in this concrete way that you do, if you were to attribute it to one thing, and maybe it isn't just one thing, but if you were to attribute it to one thing, if you were to choose one, what would it be?
Well, I mean, there are so many people who keep believing in me, even though I mess up. I know that the Rebbe believes in me because I learned the Rebbe's sichos, and that's a knowledge that I have. But my parents, my coworkers, my wife, right? So having someone believe in you makes it very obvious how important it is to believe in other people. And I don't know if everybody's lucky enough to have people who believe in them, but I sure hope that the people that we interact with at least have us.
I love that. I love that. Be the person, you could be that person you were missing. I gotta believe that there are a good amount of people that have people believing in them, but don't necessarily notice it or interpret it that way. You have a lot of people that believe in you. You've listed several examples, and you also interpret it that way. Not everybody does, and I'm curious what you might do, and this might benefit our listeners, to be able to notice the belief that people have in you. But belief can come in different languages, and sometimes we don't interpret it as a belief always, but you do.
I do think it goes back to the same idea of if I'm full of self-doubt and self bashing, and I'm continuously looking at what I did wrong and guilt and all that stuff, which is appropriate in its context. But if that's all I'm doing is thinking about all the mistakes I made, I think that it is hard for me to look at other people as being also on my side. I think that's really what it boils down to. And I think that we can learn to see ourselves differently. And, obviously, if you need help, mashpiyim, therapists, etc., getting over guilt and getting self-forgiveness and learning worth and all that stuff is a skill, and it takes practice, and it takes practice, and it takes practice, and it takes practice. It does not happen automatically. It's not going to happen in a minute. It's not going to happen in a conversation or in a letter to yourself, right? It's something that you need to cultivate over time, and life is a process. I hope everybody, including myself, will take an extra step today.
Amazing. It sounds like it all boils down to knowing that reality's there and kind of training ourselves to open our eyes a little bit more. Similar to the Rebbe's idea of opening our eyes to Mashiach. It's there. It's just developing it's developing the muscle, like you said.
Absolutely,
I love it.
Building the muscle, yeah.
Amazing. Well, Rabbi Kudan, thank you so much for your time and for your insight.
Absolutely.
And
pleasure, privilege, and an honor.
Thank you. We appreciate this.